All right, everybody. It's 10:40 a.m. Pacific time on October 22nd, 2 weeks to go from right now, today. There are only so many things we can control at this time, and that lack of control of so many other things produces this ongoing, perpetual kind of state of uncertainty and anxiety and wondering. And that's just the way it is. That's just the way it is for all of us right now. But there is fundamentally one thing that each of us can control, that all of us can control, and that's how much we try. Okay, how much we try. You know, Yoda made it famous in Star Wars that there is no try. He said, there is do. And I think that's great in terms of like a motivational piece. Like, we need to win. We want to win. Of course we want to win. But ultimately, we cannot control the ultimate outcome. What we can control individually is what each of us do. All right. And so every day, folks, as I start this podcast today, I just encourage you to think about what's the thing you're going to do that day. What is there going to be the thing that you're going to do? Michelle Obama said it, do something, all right? Do something. And I'm not going to devote this entire episode to the kind of notion of doing something, but I am going to open it with that. And then I'm going to close it today with a couple points of encouragement. That's going to be template, folks, for the next 2 weeks. We are going to do something every day. And then we're going to get some hope and some encouragement to catalyze us into it. All right. That's what we're doing in our final stretch right here. So I want to go back to that Michelle Obama campaign speech, the convention, at the convention. You saw it. You remember it. It's time to pull it back out again. Hang on. Here we go. I got it lined up to share.
This is going to be an uphill battle. So folks, we cannot be our own worst enemies. No. See, because the minute something goes wrong, the minute a lie takes hold, folks, we cannot start wringing our hands. We cannot get a Goldilocks complex about whether everything is just right. We cannot indulge our anxieties about whether this country will elect someone like Kamala instead of doing everything we can to get someone like Kamala elected. Kamala and Tim, they have lived amazing lives. And I am confident that they will lead with compassion, inclusion, and grace. But they are still only human. They are not perfect. And like all of us, they will make mistakes. But luckily, y'all, this is not just on them. No, this is up to us, all of us, to be the solution that we seek. It's up to all of us to be the antidote to the darkness and division. Look, I don't care how you identify politically, whether you're Democrat, Republican, Independent, or none of the above. This is our time to stand up for what we know in our hearts is right. To stand up, not just for our basic freedoms, but for decency and humanity, for basic respect, dignity, and empathy, for the values at the very foundation of this democracy. It's up to us to remember what Kamala's mother told her. Don't just sit around and complain, do something. So if they lie about her, and they will, we've got to do something. If we see a bad poll, and we will, we got to put down that phone and do something. If we start feeling tired, if we start feeling that dread creeping back in, we got to pick ourselves up, throw water on our face, and what? We only have 2.5 months, y'all, to get this done. Only 11 weeks to make sure every single person we know is registered and has a voting plan. So we cannot afford for anyone America to sit on their hands and wait to be called. Don't complain if no one from the campaign has specifically reached out to you to ask you for your support. There is simply no time for that kind of foolishness. You know what you need to do. So,
we know what we need to do. At Common Power, we're doing it. We are putting people in the field, hundreds and hundreds of volunteers in all of the crucial states. In North Carolina, in Georgia, in Texas, in Alabama, in Arizona, in Nevada, in Washington State, in Oregon, in Montana, in Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, New York, and Maryland, and Ohio. We are doing something, and you all are part of this. You all are traveling. You all are funding this. But this is us collectively. We are doing something, all right? We are doing something. Now, I talked yesterday about not buying the Republican polling BS. Absolutely, folks, do not buy the crap polls. The crap polls are here to discourage, to diminish, to make us doubt, to knock us down. You know, one of those crap pollsters is Trafalgar. Trafalgar actually turns out data that is almost identical poll to poll. When they report their numbers of people they talk to, it's the same number of Republicans, the same number of Democrats, the same number of independents. That's impossible, all right, if you're doing it right. So what they've said is that they have quotas, and they identify, and when they get to the number that they're looking for, they stop. Well, that's crazy too, because when you're supposed to randomly select people out of the public and get their interest, then that might give you more Republicans and Democrats, or more Democrats and Republicans. You cannot decide you're going to get to 870 Republicans and 825 Democrats, because that number is not static, election to election, poll to poll. Okay, so do not buy the crap polls. What should we buy then? That's the question of this podcast. What should we buy? All right. And by this, I mean, what should we be paying attention to? All right. What are the kind of bodies of information that we should pay attention to? Well, the most reliable information in any election is actual voting. Who's voting? Are they voting? And millions of Americans are now voting around the country. So we can look at early voting data. And we want to always do this with a certain level of wisdom and care. Okay? We cannot look at simply which party is getting more voters, because in some states, they tell us what the party ID is of registered voters. So you can look at how many Democrats have voted, how many Republicans, how many independents have voted. But you can't look at that per se, because we know that early voting by mail is more favored by Democrats. And we know that early voting in person is often favored more by Republicans. So if you just look at the percent from party to party who have voted, we can get really confused, because it depends upon the method of voting, that is the methods of voting that are available in that state. All right, Michigan, as an example, this election, has instituted 15 days of early voting. All right. For I'm sorry, 12 days of early voting in person in the state. You have to do at least 9 in each county, and you can do up to 12. All right. This is brand new this year. So who's going to use the early vote in person? Don't know. Just a couple years ago, they instituted no excuse absentee voting, which means you can get a mail ballot and vote however you want, whenever you want. Well, that's blew up and exploded, and tons of people using it in 2020. But now what's going to happen with the people who want to go maybe vote in person? Because many Americans like to vote in person. They trust it more. So you just cannot compare the number of Democrats versus Republicans that have voted in each state. That does not tell us what we want. Does not. So you can't buy that either. What you can buy, though, is the levels of enthusiasm that we're seeing by party. And so here's how you can tell this. You can look at the number of ballots that have been requested for mail within each state. And those break down, if you have those kind of data, by party in a state. And Michigan has those data by party. Wisconsin has those data by party. Arizona has those data by party. You can look at the number that requested a ballot. So everybody who requested a ballot to vote by mail, they are clearly the same method. They're all using the same method. So now we're looking within the method. All right, we're looking within the method. Way more Democrats than Republicans request mail ballots than way more Democrats than Republicans request mail ballots. Okay, so again, you can't look at the relative distribution in there because way more Democrats and Republicans are going to do requests. But you can look at what percent of each party has returned their ballots. So Democrats might be 3 more times to request a ballot, but how are they doing at returning their ballot, at actually voting? So let's just hypothetically say that in the state, well, no, let's not be hypothetical. Let's go look at an example. So in Pennsylvania, there's a great data analyst that I follow on Twitter. His name is Joshua Smithley. And there's actually several people you could follow for this, but Smithley's my go-to person. And Smithley every single day takes the Secretary of State data in Pennsylvania and reports the ballots and what the return rate is per each party. And this gives us a sense of what the levels of enthusiasm are in that state by party. All right, so let's take a look. Let's go see some Joshua Smithley data. And it's 10:53 a.m. Pacific time right now. This is data that was posted, let's see, 7:29 a.m. Pacific time. So literally 3 hours ago, 3.5 hours ago, okay? So Pennsylvania, 2024 general election, day 11. Now, who is Joshua Smithley? He is somebody that I have followed for at least 2016 and 2020. And he's a trusted analyst. The dude is even. He's reasonable. He doesn't rally the flag for the Democrats. He just tells you like it is. He's very, very trustworthy, followed by just tons and tons of people. But you can cross-reference his data with others if you don't want to just trust Smithley. You can look at others too. Here's what we see in Pennsylvania as of this morning: 1,051,000 votes that have been cast. All right, let's just go take a look here. Pennsylvania. How many? Pennsylvania, whoops. Where's the P? There it is. 2020 election results. Just to see what we got here. We'll go to Wikipedia. We'll trust them for this one. All right. Popular vote. Biden won 3,458,000. Trump won 3,337,000. So that was a victory of 80,000 votes in Wisconsin, in Pennsylvania. All told, that's 6,800,000. 6,800,000 votes. 6,800,000 votes. So right now we're at 1.05. So we're at about 1/7, 15% of all votes in Pennsylvania. Of the Democrats, they have way more of these votes right now. 649,000 votes to the Republicans, 300,000. But that's the number we cannot pay attention to because Democrats requested way more. So what we really want to pay attention is to what's called the return rate. And that's what we see here in these latter numbers. For the Democrats, they have returned 60% of their requested absentee ballots. Republicans have returned 53.6% of their requested ballots, and independents even less, 44.5%. If you look down here to return edge, the Democratic return edge in Pennsylvania right now is 6.5%, folks. 6.5%. That 6.5% is what we call an enthusiasm differential or enthusiasm gap. All right? An enthusiasm gap. That's what we're looking for right now is one party returning their mail-in ballots at a much quicker rate. And the Republicans are much slower than the Democrats in the return rates for these ballots. All right. So when we look at state by state, we can begin to gather data like this in each state. All right. We can begin to look at data by mail-in ballot, or you can look at in-person vote. And the way you would compare an in-person vote is not the number of ballots requested, because there's no such thing in in-person vote. You would instead look at the percent of registered voters for each party and what percent have turned out to vote for Democrats or for Republicans. What percent of Democrats have turned out to vote? What percent of Republicans have turned out to vote? So take a state like Arizona, the second example I want to use today. Arizona has a lot of mail ballot, and they just started early in-person voting a couple days earlier this week. I think it was the end of last week, and we just started to get numbers earlier on Sunday than Monday and Tuesday. Republicans have a registration advantage in the state of Arizona. There are more registered Republicans than there are Democrats in the state of Arizona. So you start there. When we look at ballots that have come in either by mail or in person, the Democrats are voting at a faster pace than Republicans. The gap is 1.2% right now. That Democrats are more likely to have voted by mail or in person relative to their percentage of registrants than Republicans. Democrats are more likely to be voting than Republicans. This is the kind of enthusiasm differential or gap we're looking for. Why is this so important? Because it tells us that Democrats are eager to vote. And if Republicans are less eager to vote, then they're going to have a massive push to make it happen. They need more and more of a push to vote. And that's where Get Out the Vote comes in. All right. So I'm going to wrap up here. This is where the Get Out the Vote, the mobilization that we do, comes in. If Democrats are eager to vote, then the Get Out the Vote work that we do at Common Power in all of those states I mentioned reaps rewards. People are moving. They just a little nudge and they're ready to go. Little nudge. Some of them don't need nothing. They don't need nothing. But if they need a little nudge, our door knock, our literature being left for them, our phone call, our postcard, they're eager. They're ready to go. And they are. If Republicans are less eager to go, it takes more of a push for them. And we know what that less eager feeling is, because you can just go back 3 months, and on the whole, Democrats were much, much less eager to vote for Joe Biden than they are for Kamala Harris today. Shouldn't have been the case. Biden has been a heck of a president, I think, but it was the case. So if you don't have as much enthusiasm, then you need a greater Get Out the Vote campaign. And I can tell you definitively, the evidence shows that the Democrats have a much stronger Get Out the Vote mobilization architecture this election than Republicans do. Common Power is one of those organizations that is part of this. But the NAACP, the ACLU, Next Gen America, Indivisible, the Progressive Voter Turnout Project, there are lots that are doing this. We do it at Common Power, we think, as well as or better than anybody else with our approach for community and education and interracial, intergenerational work. But for right now, just taking as a whole, the system, Democrats are more enthusiastic and they have the better get out the vote operation. Republicans are less enthusiastic and they have the weaker get out the vote operation. That is how you win elections, is by being more enthusiastic and nudge, 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 better get out the vote operation. So folks, today, there is no guarantee that we're going to win this election. There is none. There is no guarantee. But there is one certainty, one for real certainty, that if we do something every single day to help win this election, we got a better chance to win than if we don't. That's basic reality. We have a better chance to win when we do something than if we don't. All right. So everybody who's doing something, money, time, working on relationships to try to convince people, there's 2 weeks to go and we need more of it. This is the final stretch. It's the stretch for all of us. 2 weeks to go and our final stretch. We need it all. We need it all. Let's not be left on the day after the election saying, I wish I would have done more. I wish we could have done more. How did this happen? No, if the day after, whatever comes hell or high water, heaven or low water, whatever comes, let us know that we did everything, that we did something every single day. All right. Tomorrow night at 5 p.m. Pacific time, we're going to do a deeper dive into data on Zoom. Common Power is doing an event. I'm going to include the Zoom registration in this email when I send it out. Join us. All right. Join us for that. And we'll do a deeper dive. You got a little taste of it yesterday with the poll data, a little taste of it today with the turnout data. Different things, polls and turnout, different. Folks, let's do something, all right? Every single day. Let's go.